It seemed like a really interesting way to go about doing stories, and I have to say that it's a kind of reporting that I do like. I like writing about things that are working. I feel like I've done that in the past in my job. I've looked for things like that. So the possibility of spending a much larger chunk of time on looking for solution stories and writing and really writing a detailed look at some of the programs we have out here that are working it just seemed like a great challenge, and it seemed like it would be a terrific thing to bring to the community. Yes and no. One thing that is interesting that I'll mention is that before we got the grant and knew we were going to be doing this, one of the community colleges in Washington State had won a major national award for being one of the best community colleges in the country, and I was planning to do a story about that as a larger story about the community college system in Washington State, which really was going to look at some of its deficits, and this was going to be a sidebar to a larger story. And we, once we got the grant, and I hadn't written the story yet, we thought, well, maybe this is a totally different kind of story from what we were talking about. Maybe we're not going to be writing about the deficits, but we're really going to be spending more time writing about what it is at this community college that really, how they turn things around in much greater detail. And so it's a bit of a challenge because this community college is on the other side of the state. It's a 5-hour drive, and I had done all my reporting in May, and now I'm going back and trying to think about what I still need to make this a solution story. Originally, this story was just going to write about the many different things that they've done well, but now that it's a solution story, I feel like I need to drill down into some really specific things that they've done well that are not being done elsewhere in the state, and talk very specifically about how those things came about, what the history was, why they started trying to tackle a specific problem, and what were the elements that came into play that allowed them to tackle that problem. So it's just getting much more specific about what they did and how they were able to solve a problem that a lot of other community colleges have not been able to solve yet. I think it's helpful to drill down a little bit more, for this particular story anyway, a little bit more into the history of, okay, why did you think this was a problem? And what was the, I don't know, I'm interested in when people meet in a room and say, hey, you know what, we have a really big problem here. We need to put some money into it. We need to figure out what the elements are that will change this problem. And I think that, and people love talking stories, they love talking histories, and I think I'm trying to do more of this and going back to this particular case and saying, okay, what was the moment when the light bulb went off in your head and you said, here's something we have to fix, and then what happened next? What did you do next, and why did that work? So I think that finding that aha moment is a very important thing to kind of drill down and really see how that played out. I think we're still trying to figure that out. When is the research not just a one-off? When has it been replicated, I guess? When do the people doing the research seem to have, some really strong background in this area? I mean, you think about how much global climate change has been picked apart by naysayers, and it's a minefield. There's tons of research out there that can be refuted by other research, and figuring that out, I think we're still working on that. Because we're looking at solutions beyond our own backyard, I feel like that's really freeing for me to think about things that happen elsewhere. Because regional newspapers, they're really, our coverage is kind of siloed. If it's not happening in our backyard, we're really not going to do a story about it in almost any case. So regional newspapers really are so regionally focused, it means that we almost never take something that's happening elsewhere and write about it in the context of our state unless there's some talk of actually bringing that program here. That permission to go outside of our area and look for solutions I thought it was really powerful.